Casey.
I want to thank the ranking member. Also want to thank the chairman for calling this hearing. And it's nice to have a little extra time too with it. I'll take a little bit of extra time, but not too much. But it's helpful because this is a subject about which we don't debate enough, don't spend enough time on. I want to start with the New Testament. There's a line in the New Testament where Jesus is quoted as saying, the poor you shall always have with you. I guess over time, a much debated line, what that means. Some, I guess, could interpret it in the context of our political debates as there'll always be a high number of poor people, and that's just the way life is. I think most of us here would interpret it another way, and I think the appropriate way, which is you're going to have poor people in society, and you've got to do something about that. You've got to work and act to reduce that number. It's especially urgent when it comes to children. And if you want to talk about a subject that we don't spend enough time on, it's this. Children in poverty, why? What can we do about it? What are we not doing? I'd assert that both houses and folks in the House and the Senate and both parties aren't doing enough. None of us are doing enough on this, and certainly not doing as much as the people in front of us. So I want to thank the panel for your testimony and for your kind of living witness about what this means and what we must do about it. Secondly, I wanted to mention some numbers. We got all kinds of numbers flying around. The most recent number I've seen for 2014, we've got a lot of 2013 numbers. The 2014 number is about a 21% poverty rate for children. The Annie Casey Foundation, no relation to me, a great foundation that tracks these numbers, they've put out a one-pager for a number of years now, and this is my marked-up version of it. It's 16 categories for children, broken down into 4 segments, just Mr. Pierpont, just like yours in Utah, similar, economic well-being, education, health, and family and community as it relates to children. And the green in this chart means that the numbers have gotten better since 2007 to 2008. And that's good, and we should highlight when numbers are getting better. Unfortunately, the numbers that are getting worse are the subject of this hearing. Child poverty, worse since 2008. Children whose parents lack secure employment, worse since 2008. Children not attending preschool, that number got worse. Not by a lot percentage-wise, but a big number. According to them, children not attending preschool, 4.4 million children across, more than 4.4 million across the country. So I can go through all the numbers. Children living in high poverty areas, higher. Children in single-parent families, higher. So the numbers are way up. What do we do about it? Well, one thing we can do, and I want to ask the panel to give your point of view on what's the top recommendation you would make for us to reduce these numbers. That's my question. Before I do that, I wanted to highlight a bill I'm introducing today. The House has a similar version introduced recently, Child Poverty Reduction Act, basically doing what the UK did, which is to set a target and figure out a way to reach the target. The UK set a child poverty target and resulting policy changes cut their child poverty rate by 50% in a decade. What our bill would do would be to set a target of reducing the number of children living in poverty by half in 10 years. That would be a national goal pursuant to the bill. Develop a plan, develop recommendations as to what's working now and what's not working right now. So that's one thing we can do, to at least set a target and to work towards that. But I'll go right to left and go down the list. If you had an opportunity to say one thing the Congress of the United States should do, what would it be?
Excuse me, I don't believe that there's one solution. I believe there are several. Part of what we have done in Utah is dug deep into the data to really understand what families are faced with, what their challenges are, certainly with a keen interest on how the children are doing. There are a couple things that I can highlight as a part of our report that stand out, and you mentioned it, is access to high-quality preschool and after-school programs, preparing kids for kindergarten, extended day kindergarten, ensuring that they're prepared to succeed in the school system. So that's one example. Another would be access to health care. Making sure that children have access to dental care and healthcare screenings. Our data shows that they're not going to the doctor every year. And how do you best support kids in the health area? So there are several others that are in there, but certainly I believe this committee, as you look at TANF and other programs, it's an understanding of how the children are performing, how they're doing, and a conversation about what needs to be done differently with the programs to include the children in the dialogue.
Thank you.
Yep.
Dr. Schaefer?
Well, I have to go with what we heard from the families in our book, which is that I would make a concerted effort to increase economic opportunity at the very bottom. I would see if we could make the next generation a jobs generation. And I think these types of initiatives should probably be place-based. I think they can be done through public and private partnerships, and maybe they would be done with a notion of improving infrastructure, of which we have many problems. And I think these types of programs would probably need lots of wraparound services to help place families into jobs and keep them in those jobs as they experience crisis points.
And let me just note for the record, I was struck by that searing statistic from your testimony on page 1. As of 2011, 1.5 million households with 3 million children reporting cash incomes of no more than $2 per day, up 130% from 15 years ago. So your data, your research shows that since TANF was passed, as Senator Menendez outlined, you got 3 million more kids living in $2 a day homes.
That's right, up 130%, and this is consistent across a series of indicators, both from household survey data, from our administrative tallies. We see a similar increase in the number of homeless school children as reported by our schools. So I think when you see all of these indicators moving in the right direction, you can say pretty clearly that circumstances are getting worse at the very bottom. Well, in fact, in some ways, the government does far more for families around the poverty line, just above the poverty line before, than it's ever done before, and I think we can be proud about that.
Ms. Jackson, thank you for your service, and what would you hope we would do?
I would hope that Congress will put more resources into organizations like the one that Mr. Perry Point has going in Utah, America Works, organizations like that. Myself, I started a nonprofit in 2005 for single parents, and it didn't go anywhere because I didn't have the education or the experience to actually get it going. But what Mr. Pierpoint spoke about, those were all of the things that I had outlined in this nonprofit to be able to assist families. My biggest thing when I did my research was single parents. The poverty, it impacts everybody. Poverty does not just stay below the poverty line. It impacts the entire country. And if we do not, what Congress has to do is understand that, not understand, but, because I know y'all understand.
Sometimes we do.
It's just understand that the people that are in poverty are I lost my thought, sorry. Just a minute. The people that are in poverty are some are generational and some are situational, like that has been said. What I see is we do have a lot of programs that focus on the children. However, the single parents are the ones that really have to be dealt with. They the ones that have to be realigned. Of course, you have to make sure that when you teach them or you train them or you redirect them, that you look out for the welfare of the children. But I really believe that putting more emphasis on the person as opposed to just shoving out money is more important, if that makes any sense to you.
Yep. Dr. Lopez, we're down to maybe 20 seconds. That's my fault, but if you
Okay.
could just be observant.
No, but because I agree with what everyone said. I think that the most important thing is to make work opportunity and to think that when you think about child poverty, and we know the persistence of child poverty, how devastating it is, that helping those children's parents to be able to work and take care of the children is the number one way, I think, to help them out of poverty. We need all of the other programs, but helping them to be able to provide for their families and investing in that opportunity is what's important.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator Casey. Senator Stabenow.